In this video, I will show you every player that you need to succeed for this Thursday Night Football Showdown Captain Mode on DraftKings as the Denver Broncos take on the New York Jets, and oh my god, this is literally the worst lineup for a primetime game that I've ever seen. It's a battle between the number one most likely coach in the NFL to be fired, with some predicting Adam Gase's departure from the Jets franchise if he falls to 0-4 in Week 4, and a third-string quarterback starting in his first game ever. I'm still here though, and I'm still Quick Pick Nick, here to give you your locks and lotteries in under 5 minutes for tonight's blank show. And you can fill in that blank with Odell's favorite bedroom snack. To start off this lineup with as much of a lock as we're going to get for this questionable slate, my model recommends Melvin Gordon at MVP. When it came down to who was going to be our MVP for this competition, the two clear options were Gordon and Jerry Jeudy. Taking either QB at all in this slate is quite the leap of faith, considering the Jets' team leader, Sam Darnold, hasn't broken 13 fantasy points in a game yet this season. And the only data point we have for the reserve player Brett Ripon is during Tampa Bay's victory formation in the fourth quarter. So I'll be avoiding QBs altogether for this lineup. After simulating hundreds of thousands of different lineup combinations, the ones that were projected to score the most typically included Gordon at MVP rather than Jeudy, and the top projected lineup had Gordon in this slot as well. Some of the Jeudy-led lineups look good as well, but they mostly had budgeting issues that resulted in a majority of Broncos players as well as the Jets defense to be included in one lineup, which would result in the cannibalization of our own points, so I wanted to avoid those options for this video as much as possible. Well, after choosing Gordon at MVP over Jeudy, that doesn't mean that Jeudy will be left out completely, as he will be our second lock for this slate in a flex position. Aside from Gordon, Jeudy has the next highest projection overall, and is priced well below what could end up becoming a 15+ fantasy point game for him. Jeudy has been averaging 10 fantasy points per game on DraftKings so far, which is rather solid consistency you won't find anywhere else in this slate, and I expect Jeudy to be able to build on this benchmark further tonight against a Jets team that has yielded 239 passing yards per game to offenses in 2020. I'll be fading Fant tonight mainly for budgeting reasons, as for $9,000 he doesn't fit in well with the other two options. In addition, New York has historically kept tight ends numbers low, whether that is due to actual good defense or their inability to stop the ball from being thrown downfield, I don't know, but it's true that tight ends tend to score less against the Jets, so I'll be sticking with Denver's receivers and running backs for the night. Before getting into the lotteries, the final lock for this slate is Jamison Crowder. Crowder had a massive Game 1 against Buffalo, which is uncharacteristic coming from a Jets player, having been targeted 13 times and recording nearly 30 fantasy points on DraftKings. He's been out for the past 2 weeks, but from Week 1 alone, I think it's safe to say that Crowder is Darnold's top target, and the only name I even recognize on the team, so I'll be locking him in as the second flex. Okay, now that we've covered the good players, we're approaching my main concern for this slate, which is the fact that we're left with choosing between bad, worse, and worst. The rest of the players in this slate can't be expected to score more than 10 points a game, and in some cases no more than 5, so it's really up to picking the no-names who fit the budget best, which luckily was done by an algorithm I wrote, though I didn't have to deliberate between choosing the tight end who should be working at a McDonald's or the running back who's on his 7th professional team. So after saying all that stuff about how terrible everyone else is, I feel kinda bad with the first lottery because he's kind of a legend in the league, that being Frank Gore. Having played professional football for over a decade and a half at this point, Gore has accumulated the 3rd most rush yards of all time during his tenure in the NFL. He's certainly slowed down at this point, which is to be expected after bashing your head into other behemoth football players at the ripe age of 37, but Gore still has some left in the tank, acting as the Jets' leading rusher over the past 2 weeks. He's still not great, only averaging 6.7 fantasy points per game during that period, but no one around him is great either, so Gore is our best bet given the trash from which I'm trying to mold a competent fantasy team. The second lottery is going to be some tight end you've probably never heard of, the go-to for the Jets' short game, Chris Herndon. Herndon has been relatively reliable for close passes in New York, which typically isn't great for fantasy, but he does get volume, which is significant in DraftKings and a good enough reason to take him instead of his undrafted teammates. Finally, the last slot will be filled with the Broncos defense. I mean, what can I say at this point that hasn't already been said? We're out of options here, and if everyone plays as poorly as I've been advertising so far, the Broncos should be our only hope, the diamond in the rough that we've been looking for to potentially shut down Sam Darnold. But hopefully not Crowder or Herndon, obviously. Still got my fingers crossed for them, but I still do expect a bountiful amount of interceptions to be thrown by Darnold. That's what my model is able to manage for this crapshoot of a Thursday Night Football Showdown Captain Mode on DraftKings. I promise my videos are typically more optimistic than this, but come on, what am I supposed to do when the top option is a mediocre running back? If you enjoy these lineup builders, be a friend, tell a friend. Let's grow the Quick Pick Network. This has been Quick Pick Nick, the intersection for sports, data analysis, and speed. Thanks for watching.